Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, host of the Riderflex podcast and founder and CEO of our day job recruiting firm, Riderflex. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast for updates and news. If you haven't already, check out the series of books we've published on hiring, interviewing, and overall career advice titled The Riderflex Guide. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Class 6 Partners. Are you ready to sell your business or raise capital? Class 6 Partners guides you through the entire process, from business optimization to securing the perfect deal. With over $3 billion in transactions, they turn your business dreams into reality. Visit class6partners.com to start your journey today.
I grew up in New York. My parents divorced when I was young.
Okay.
So
How
I
old?
was
How old
about
were
3
you?
years old. I was about
Oh,
3 years old when they separated.
okay.
So I have no memory of my parents ever really together.
Okay.
And I was raised by my mom, stepfather. My mother was married 3 times. She's with her third husband now. And that's been her longest marriage. In that time, I didn't actually do any therapy when I was younger, really much. But having a lot of divorce in your family can create some tumultuousness.
Yeah.
And probably could have used therapy when I was younger, but somehow ended up going in that direction with my career. Although my earlier career did not look like this. I kind of dabbled around. I went to school, undergraduate at Brandeis University.
Okay.
I got in there, early decision, did my studies in social work. I'm sorry, not social work, excuse me, sociology. I had a minor in English, creative writing, and journalism. That was the direction I thought I was going to go. And when I graduated from school, I went back to New York. That was in Boston. I went back to New York, assuming with my Brandeis degree, which is a really top-rated school, I was just going to get any job I wanted. So I don't know. I kind of have this. I'm pretty confident about lots of things. So I just went into the world thinking I was going to get this great job. And my friend and I started applying for jobs in the New York City, that world, that corporate kind of world. And I was getting rejected left and right. I was really like, what is happening here? I totally thought I was going to get this amazing job right out of school, but that did not happen. So I started applying for secretarial positions, and because that was like all that was available. So I applied for a job through Morgan Stanley Dean Witter.
Okay.
That was, investment banking, and it was supposed to be an assistant, like an executive assistant type position. That's all that I was seeing that was out there that I could possibly qualify for at that point.
Okay.
So I go in for the interview, and I'm talking to the woman who's hiring, and she's like, this is not for you. She said, I have something else for you. I have a different position for you. It's called a sell side analyst. And it was really a glorified secretary position, honestly, but I got to travel. I traveled all over. I was in Argentina. I was all over the United States.
Cool.
To do what they call data room for their sell side part of their mergers and acquisitions.
All right.
Now, I can't even balance my checkbook. So the math part of it was not really my job. It was really like, that was just, it was, like I said, a glorified secretary, but I'll take it because first job out of college, you get to travel that much. It was great. The hours were amazing. And I, was like, oh, this is fun. I actually
This is
like
fun. Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Were you living downtown New York? Where were you living at the time?
I was living in Queens at the time.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
All right. Not married,
and
single.
single, yeah,
Okay.
dating, single, but
Dating, single, just having a good time, traveling around,
right.
living the single New York life.
Right. I did have a boyfriend at the time, but when that ended, I did other things. I went into teaching. I wanted to get my master's degree. I got my master's degree in counseling and school counseling, assuming that I would end up going into that or staying teaching. So a variety of different careers between Morgan Stanley and
Okay.
and the teaching thing. While I was in my master's degree for school counseling, one of the professors there said, you need to go get your doctorate. You know, that's just, you're a candidate for this. You should really totally think about this. And I was like, okay, sure. So it sounds good. So I looked into doctoral programs in counseling and psychology. I applied for a whole bunch of them. I got into the program that I wanted, which is the DU PsyD program.
Okay.
And I kind of did it on a whim, and I was like, I guess I'm just going to move across the country. So that's what I did. I moved to Denver, and I was 29
Okay.
at the time, still
Single.
single,
Still
still
single.
single.
All right.
Yes, I
All right.
that relationship that I was talking about ended when
Okay.
I was
All right.
27, and then I moved here and went to school for my doctorate. I didn't really have any plans. Like I just was like, let's just try something new, and
Okay.
a lot of debt later. Here I am, um, it was a good choice. It was a really good choice because it's led me to what I'm doing now. As
Let me,
a licensed psychologist, I started out after graduating, I started my solo practice, just assuming that I was going to do solo practice
okay.
for my whole career, and it
Okay.
didn't go that way. I ended up expanding and blooming, and now I have a large group practice. So,
Before we
uh,
get into the practice, I want to ask you a couple more things about when you were
sure.
younger. Were you the only child?
No, I have a younger half brother,
Okay.
um, who was my mom's with her second husband. He lives here in Colorado. He lives in Elizabeth, and
Oh,
we see each other every now and then.
okay.
He's got four absolutely gorgeous children, who I love
Okay.
dearly.
Okay.
And so he's married, and I have an older brother who's my stepbrother from my mom's second husband as well.
I see.
He was his son from that marriage. So I grew up with both of them.
I got you. I got you. Was your stepdad that you grew up with, was he decent guy, good guy, asshole?
We had some moments. We had moments. But the funny thing is we actually get along very well now. He calls
Okay.
me, and um we
Okay.
talk about, things every now and then, and he wishes me well, and
Well, that's really cool because he's not married to your mom anymore. He still calls and checks
no,
on you. How about that?
every now and then, yeah, we're friends on Facebook. He comments on my posts, he's, about my kids and stuff.
All right.
So yeah,
Was
turned
your
out
mom
okay.
was your mom pretty hardcore or super relaxed and laid back?
I would say my mom is pretty relaxed and laid back.
Was she? Okay.
Yeah.
And she's still with us?
Yes, she
Yeah.
lives in Pennsylvania. Uh,
I thought she had a place in Florida too. No, is that your mom? Who is that?
no, that's my grandmother.
Your
Yeah.
grandmother's still alive. That's right. How old is she?
She is I think 90, I think she just turned 90.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. My
I bet.
other grandmother, unfortunately, my mother's mother just passed away yesterday.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry. So
yeah,
sorry.
that's
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
We weren't particularly close for the last several years, but I'm going to be traveling to New York to go
Uh,
to help my mom out with that next week.
were you a good, like when you were in high school? I'm just curious. Were you a good kid or were you like, I'm sneaking out, getting in trouble? I want to like, give me something. Like, confess.
This is going to be all over
Confess.
YouTube. Are you kidding
Conf
me?
confess, Lisa. What do you want to tell?
Um,
Confess now. But what would you do?
I was a pretty good kid. Honestly, I was a really pretty good kid. Grades were very important to me. My
Okay. So,
grandfather was an
all right.
incredibly important influence in my life,
Okay.
and he made it really clear that it was vital for me to get good grades in order for him to cover my college expenses.
Okay.
So, um,
All
high
right. So
school,
yeah, you were 4.0 or close to it.
no, I mean, I wouldn't say I was 4.0, but I A's and B's, yeah. I
Yeah.
had some
Okay.
C's. I mean, I had C's too, in the
You got
math and
anything?
science areas.
How about you got anything cool in there? Like, were you ever arrested? I mean, anything like super fun?
Yeah, not really. Not really. What are these questions, Steve?
Okay, so you were a
No,
good kid. You were a
I
good
was a
kid.
pretty good kid. I mean, I had my moments, I tried
We
tried
all
some
do.
things,
Oh, we
right?
all do, right?
But
Yeah, for sure.
overall, I had a goal. I had a goal, and that was to go to college, get out of town, you know, make myself successful in whatever that meant.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Okay, good. So you get to Denver, you're single, you're finish your doctorate. walk me through when you get married in here. Like when do you meet Craig? Like how's this work? Give me some timeline.
So I dated a lot in my I was
Why
in
not?
grad school, and
Yeah.
I don't know how I managed to have the social life that I did considering I was in grad school, but I was skiing all the time. I was skiing and snowboarding. I when I the year that I first started skiing, I tore my ACL, and the thing I said to the doctor was, how quickly can you get me back on the mountain, and how? So he ended up switching me to
Uh,
snowboarding. So I did that. I was a 14er climber. So I
cool.
spent the first couple of years while I was in grad school, just also enjoying my life, going out to dinners and things like that, and dating. And then I met my husband in 2009, in May of 2009 on a 13er climb. Um, yeah.
Oh, like
And
a group thing. Was it like a group thing you met at the base, or you're just
it
like
was,
or on the trail?
if you have ever heard of the Denver Trailheads,
Is that?
it's a meetup group.
I see.
Yeah, there's
I see.
like 4 or 5,000 people in that group. Uh,
Ah.
and there was about 3,000 or so when I ran it, but I ran that group for a little while.
Oh, I didn't know
Because it was
that. That's
really,
pretty neat. Okay. All
yeah.
right. All right.
So he came on the hike that I was on. And
What happened? Did he see you and like, oh, okay, hey,
well,
give me some
I was
details.
sort of at the tail end. For as much as I hiked, I was actually a pretty slow hiker. And I was at the tail end of the hike, and he was kind of tailing it up with me there, and we were talking for a while, and he decided to carry my backpack for me, and
Oh, good move.
which was really nice. Yeah, and it was very windy and blustery, and
Okay.
you know how the sun will reflect off the snow. Well, I didn't wear sunscreen that day, so I ended
Uh,
up looking like Freddy Krueger after that. Um, it was pretty funny. Uh, but he was a
uh,
really nice guy, and that was sort of when we started dating and hit it
now
off. And he was one of the nicest, honestly, the nicest people I'd ever met.
did you
So
dissect all your boyfriends? Did you make them lay down on the couch and start asking them questions as a psychologist? Were you like, okay, I'm going to take you through a session?
no, but I think that it's important to be paying attention to the things when they alarm you, you know. Um, one of
How
my favorite
fast?
books that I recommend to my clients is he's just not that into you. And people think of it like the movie, but there's an
Uh,
actual book for it that
okay.
was written, and it's a really clever book. And anybody
Okay.
who feels rejected should read this book.
Okay. Good one. A good
So,
tip. Good tip.
yes.
Let me ask you now, as a psychologist, I'm wondering how this works. Because that's your profession, do you meet somebody and you're able to dissect them faster in your head, or is it the opposite and you spend more time before you rush to judgment? Which way is it? Just curious.
Well, hard to answer because I think that we make some first impressions about people no matter who we are, even psychologists do. We
Okay.
got to sense, but they're not always right.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I think you have to get to know somebody a little bit more. If there's a obvious piece of evidence that you're looking at, they're like, oh,
Uh-huh.
okay, that's whoa, then you pay attention. But I think it's important to give people a chance. I think it's
Okay. All right.
uh, and you're
How
talking
often?
on a personal level here, of course, like
Yeah.
quite a different situation when I'm sitting in the room with a client.
Now, how often is your initial 5 minute, your initial 5 minutes, that reaction in your head, how often does that end up being right? 70% of the time, 60% of the time,
Hmm.
80% of the time?
Trying to figure
Yeah.
if you're leading me somewhere with these questions.
See, you're dissecting me right now. That's so funny.
Uh,
I'm just wondering for me, yeah, I mean, as a recruiter, right? I'm sizing people up on purpose even faster probably than you, right? Like I'm trying to get right to it. I'm trying to figure out who they are.
I don't think 5 minutes is enough time to give
Not
anybody unless you see them murder someone in the middle of I think that people are complex.
they
There
are.
people are
Yeah.
very complex, and they have a lot of facets, and just because you meet somebody one day in one way and they're behaving in some way at that moment doesn't mean that they behave that way all the time.
Yeah. So when you first started, and I apologize, I'm going to talk in idiot terms here because I don't know the business, but all I know is what I see on TV. The patient comes in, they sit down on the couch, they cry, you talk to them, they ask, I don't know what's real. I
Not
mean,
TV. I promise
it,
you that's not real.
how is it? Yeah, well, tell us what is real for anybody that hasn't gone through counseling and that might want to or that needs to. How does it really go?
Well, I think it depends. There's a lot of us out there. There are a lot of therapists out there.
Okay.
There are a lot of therapists who are qualified, and there are a lot of therapists who shouldn't be therapists, honestly. So I think it's important, just the same way we go through a dating relationship. I think it's important for people to meet somebody who can be their therapist, assess whether this is the right fit for them. It might take a couple of sessions just to gauge that. And see if they're interacting well, but that's important. It's an important relationship. So but initially, if somebody's doing the right thing, the therapist is doing the right thing, they're spending the first session obviously giving the information they need about the legal stuff that we have to cover and all that. If somebody doesn't do that, then I'd be concerned that they're not
Good tip. Good tip.
yeah, they're not following, like, they're not following the law and the ethics of their profession. So yes, it sometimes feels a little bit like, oh, I want to tell this therapist what I really need to tell them, but we have to go through that before we get started. We have to let them know
Interesting.
what our obligations are to them, by
Mhm.
law or by ethics. And then getting into the background, understanding what is it they're there for. We do some treatment planning, conceptualizing of like, what is it that you need? What are you looking for from the therapist? Because there's different ways of approaching a person. Do they just need someone to listen and not really give a lot of feedback? Not usually, but sometimes. Or they looking for change? That if the therapist is there to facilitate that change, that's going to be a good thing to be looking for. You want a therapist who's able to do that and not just talk in the air about stuff all the time. Like it's got to
Mhm.
there needs to be some goal and some direction.
What is the most common reason for a patient to come in? Is it change? Is it I just need somebody to listen? Is it like what is the most common patient, so to speak, I
Well,
guess?
there's no real common patient. It's more just that humans are relational. So even it's whether it's relationship with oneself or relationship with someone else, a lot of times we are that's how we're like rooted or grounded, like we have relationships from the moment we are born with our attachment figures, our parents, and then that sets the tone for how we grow up and how we approach the world, through our peers, and then romantic relationships, friends, etc., our coworkers, how we interact with people. So people can be coming in with like, I have a work issue. A lot of times it's a work issue with a coworker, or or it's a self issue because they're not in the right profession, or but it's we have to work on those relational things a lot of the time. um
Do you have you ever been scared with a patient?
have I ever been scared of a patient?
Because they're just like, man, this guy's gonna jump up off the couch and like,
Not scared of a patient that anyone is ever going to hurt me.
okay,
I've been concerned for some of my patients for their own safety for themselves.
I
Like
see.
I've had clients who I was concerned that I wouldn't see them again. And it would
Mm.
be week after week where I would be worried that they would not return. Um,
Oh
you know,
wow.
so
And then,
suicidality is a real thing.
and then do you beat yourself? Do you like start questioning yourself like, oh my God, I hope I said the right thing. I hope this.
No, no, I mean, we do safety planning and we talk about, well, what will you do between now and next week if something happens,
I
if
see. I see.
what are your resources that you're going to utilize? There's only so much a therapist can do. Like I use the word facilitator on purpose. We're not the ones who affect the change. The client is the one that affects the change. And the client has to be responsible to affect the change. We're just merely there to help them along with that process and
Mhm.
guide them towards that, if that makes sense.
Is it fair to say that almost everybody could use some sort of counseling?
Absolutely. Yes. I would say that without reservation. I mean, we all have something going on.
Isn't
The
that the truth?
the tough part is, will insurance cover it, right? Because insurance and covers therapy if it's medically necessary, according to the insurance. So if it's not medically necessary, then sometimes we'll have to be out of pocket. But
What is that? What's the definition of that? Like they have a mental disorder? What does medically necessary mean?
um, I will have to get back to you on that because I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Um,
I'm like, what? Yeah, how does that? Who's defining that?
well, to define it, each insurance company will define it through their documentation, but it will usually be around a diagnosis and symptoms and symptom reduction is what
Okay,
they're looking for.
I
Um,
see.
so
I
that's a
see.
large part of it. But
Okay,
symptom
so that
reduction is not the best course of action for someone to see long-term results.
so is it? Are we talking about two different things? I say, again, I'm talking ignorant here because I don't know the business, but I guess there's a difference. Is there a difference between I have a mental it issue or mental disease or whatever, I'm schizophrenic or I'm bipolar or whatever, versus I just need to talk to somebody because my relationship's bad? I mean, that's two different patients,
Sure.
isn't
Well,
it?
you're talking about acuity. You're talking about acuity
I see.
of
Thank you.
someone's concerns.
Okay.
So if somebody has some significant acute issues, they're
Okay.
probably not going to be working within a practice like mine. I mean, I'm talking
I
severe
see.
situations, right?
I see.
They'll either be doing inpatient or some sort of a hospitalization program,
Okay.
which is still part of our the breadth of services that are offered. But
Okay.
most people can be okay um in an outpatient type environment like mine.
Okay.
If they need higher level of services or more frequent care, they often go to like a community mental health center or something like that, that
I
has
see.
the capacity. They're sort of all encompassing. They provide all the services, whereas ours is like non-emergent related issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I ask about that is my first wife, my ex-wife, is bipolar and schizophrenic, and pretty much on the streets and homeless at this point. The boys don't even know where she's at. All my kids are grown, but um, I mean, she's, yeah, just really bad. And all
That
of us,
would not have been something that my organization would be able to handle.
that's where I was going. Okay, I
Yeah.
got you. Okay, all right. Is that too off the beaten path here from what you do to just ask you, what do we do? Should we do with people like that?
No,
I
it's not
don't,
off the beaten path at all, actually.
what do we
It
do
wouldn't be
there?
something that my organization would be able to really handle. As you are aware, a large part of my organization is through interns and pre-licensure candidate therapists. So
Yeah.
acute cases are just well beyond their
Yeah.
abilities no matter what. Oh, gosh, I thought I turned my phone off. I apologize. Um, let me just turn that off.
But I'm just, where I'm going there is, let me give you my thoughts there. I see, not that I want to go to, we don't have to talk about the homeless situation, but I see where it all ties together because now I see what's happened to her, right? Like she's homeless, she's on the streets, but she's got the mental disorder, and and
Well,
I
our
know
systems often fail people. Our
it goes
systems often,
together.
yeah, but our
What's that?
system often fails people like that. They
Yeah. So
don't
what do we
have,
do? How do we fix it? And the boys, that's what I was wondering what your thoughts were. The boys, my sons, they're just at their wits' end. I mean, they've tried everything. She won't stay in it. Like, they've tried to pay for an apartment for her, but she will not stay there. Right. Just will not.
right,
And it's like, they can't get her committed because they can't get the right paperwork to get that done. So they can't, so they're just like, what the fuck do we do? And I'm just like,
really
yeah,
hard.
it's really hard.
Really hard. And that's a little bit more out of my wheelhouse because
Okay.
it's not really
Okay.
my area of expertise, but I would say that, I know with Colorado, you're aware that I'm working with the Behavioral Health Administration and the commissioner of the Behavioral Health Administration, who's wonderful.
Okay.
She and her team have a lot of great things in store, I think,
Okay.
for what we want to do, what we as a group want to do to make sure mental health services are better in Colorado because historically they just haven't been.
Yeah.
So you know, I think it starts there. It starts with government agencies, and
Okay.
it starts with them partnering with um the people who are doing the work, which is why I'm, you know, able to work with her, have a kind of a seat at the round table there, which is
Okay.
really nice.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good. That's good.
and
Do you see at your practice, do you see more individuals or more couples? Do you do couples or do you just do individuals? How does that work?
we do all, and again, it's not me doing the work myself. I don't see clients at all anymore.
Okay.
It's
But what if
my,
I want to see, what if somebody listens to this and they want to see Lisa?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen clients in a long time. It's hard for me to do the actual work and run the business at the
I
same.
understand. No, I understand. But anyway, you were going to say
And you're
couples
the one
and
giving me that advice too. So, you know, I'm not supposed to be in the day to day.
individuals and
I will
couples.
say that I miss it. I mean, I will say that there are aspects of it that I really do miss. I like working with clients directly. I
Okay.
still get my feet a little bit wet with that when I do psychological assessment, but I don't see those clients long term.
I see.
But it is rewarding.
Okay.
Um, but I have a wonderful staff. So I mean, we have a really wonderful staff of uh committed and commit clinicians who are committed to learning and servicing their clients really well.
For the listeners, it's centerforvaluedliving.com,
Right.
centerforvaluedliving.com. By the way, the phone number is 720-347-8559. Um, what is like, is it just across the board? Is it young people, older people, couples, therapy? Do you work towards servicing a certain group of people?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
talk to
mean,
us.
we serve all individuals
Okay.
from all different ages. Like I said, we have a wide variety of providers. So we have some providers who will see kids as young as 3 years old, all the way through, you know, older adulthood, um, adolescents, teens, couples,
Okay.
families. We do all that depending
Okay.
on the actual provider and what their interests are and what their training is. And then, but we have our mission is really to work in alignment with anti-racist principles. Want to be neurodivergent affirming and queer allied. That's our main goal, is to be able to provide services for those people who fall within those categories,
Okay.
and have them feel like they have a safe place to come and be taken care of.
Okay.
So
Okay. Very good. But you see everybody. Doesn't matter.
we do, yeah. We'll work with whatever the client is coming in with, really, unless it's super acute. We don't have the
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
training, but
Yeah. And the insurance, we don't have to go too far in the weeds, but Medicare, Medicaid, basic insurance, Kaiser, how does that work?
everything except at this point Humana. We don't take Humana because they're kind of a nightmare to work with.
I see.
Um, but yeah, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United, Cigna, Aetna,
What about cash?
our-
How about cash?
sure, people, if they want to use their cash, if they want to use their benefits, we can let them use their benefits. Because we want to, a major thing for us also is to try to provide affordable services. So if they
Okay. Okay.
want to use their cash, if they want cash, fine, and we'll take it. You know, I'm not going to turn away cash, but
What percentage of your customers are male versus female?
like 50-50. I mean,
Oh,
it's
really? I would have just guessed 70% female.
no, no, we have a lot of men coming in for therapy. We have
Really?
what we're struggling with right now is that we don't have a lot of male therapists. And sometimes that is something that people ask for, or they ask specifically for people of color. And we're trying, that's a major goal of ours, is to hire people who represent the communities that they're working with. So
Okay.
it's
Help me. All right. I want you to give me a hard time here. Just because I know some other guys are going to be thinking the same thing I'm thinking. So for the macho, I would never do that. That's wimpy. I'd never go tell anybody about my feelings. I'm a macho guy. I'm too tough for that, right? Like, I'm stunned that half of your audience is 50% male. Like, I would, in my own mind, I'm thinking now I know this is not the right thinking, but I'm thinking I'd have to be pretty fucked up to go see a psychologist. I'd have to really be bad to lay down on the couch and tell Lisa my problems.
no.
But a lot of guys aren't, huh? They can do it.
I guess so. They seek us out.
Well, maybe I'm the one that's messed up. I think I'm the one that's messed up. Maybe I do need to go talk about my problems. And can I complain about my wife? She's in the other room.
You can complain about whoever you want in therapy. Yep.
Is that, I guess it's a lot of marital stuff, huh? Probably.
Like I said, it's a lot of relational things. There's a lot to it that is relational. And the
What?
goal is to help people determine, well, it's really not up to us to make the goal. It's up to the client to make the goal. But do they want to have more fruitful relationships with the people that they are already in relationships with? Do they want to work on relationships they haven't yet started?
Okay.
Pick
What
which
happens when what
path.
happens when these conversations go towards the bedroom area with the husband-wife problems? Is
Uh,
that
say what more about what you mean that there.
well, is it also sex therapy too, or no?
People are sex therapists, sure. So
I mean,
yeah.
in your group?
We have, I think we have one or two therapists that can do that work more. When I say intimately, I don't mean it. I have to be careful about how I say that. But they have more training in it. It's not, you don't just, anything that we do, we want to have good, adequate training in. We don't just talk about
Well, I
random things.
understand, but my point is when couples come in, I can only imagine that a lot of times it drifts that way. It drifts
Sure.
towards the
Most
intimate
therapists
stuff.
are pretty candid and they don't really, not much phases us when we
Oh, I
talk
bet.
about
I'm
stuff.
sure. Oh, I'm sure you've probably heard it all,
Talk
right?
about anything. Yeah. I mean, you bring
That
it
is
up, it's fine. We want to create that environment for people too, to make sure that they have a place where they can talk about that without feeling judged or, um,
yeah.
just that they have the space to do that for sure.
You've been doing this long enough to where are you probably not shocked anymore, are you? You're
Not
probably
really, not shocked about much. Nope.
you've seen, you've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, the dark side, the good side. You've seen it all.
Yeah. And I think again, the important part is that a therapist comes at it with a non-judgmental lens.
Are most people good?
Therapists?
No, people. Are most people
Oh,
are most people just good, or are you taint?
you're asking me.
Are you scarred now over
You're
based on
asking
what you
me a
see?
philosophical question, really.
Well, I mean, are most people inherently good or no? Or
I
what
would
is
say,
your
yeah, sure. I would say that most people are good or first of all, I want to scrap that language. Okay.
okay?
The good and bad is not really something in my
Ah,
vocabulary.
I see.
Uh, I prefer healthy or not healthy or,
I see.
um, because good or bad, good and bad is a judgment and judgment by whom, right? So
Talk about
if
going
you
deep. Talk about going deep.
if you have a client who comes in and they feel like they're bad according to
Bad
whom,
according to whom? Yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, I've had people who, well, I can't really talk too much about client related stuff, but
Right.
come in
Right.
with questions like that. And I'm like, who's to determine that?
Have you I'm sure you've dealt with sociopaths, right? They just have no remorse whatsoever. They're just bad people. I'm sure you've seen that.
I have worked in a variety of different contexts. Uh, in my organization, we don't see too many sociopaths come through, but I have in my earlier career. Uh, I mean, even I've worked with sex offenders, and honestly, I've worked with some pretty amazing men who have been sex offenders.
They came
So,
out of it. They're okay now.
um,
I don't know. Are you ever okay? Yeah, I
they're
don't know. That's a good question.
well, I mean, they did some their behaviors, they did some awful things to some people.
Yeah.
Again, this goes back to bad or good, like bad behavior.
What happens what happens if they confess to a crime? Well, is that doctor patient privilege thing? What happens? What do you
It is, well, sort of. If it was a child,
okay?
we are required to report that.
I got you.
If it's anybody under 18, we're required, it doesn't matter what the statute, I mean, because the statute of limitations could be lengthy, we actually have to report that no matter what if it was a child.
I got
If
you.
so, I always say to my therapist when I'm training them, if your client has somebody buried in their backyard and they reveal that to you, as long as it's not a kid, you can't report it. If they say, I'm going to go kill my wife and bury her in my backyard, you have a duty to report that.
Oh, I see. So if it's something that hasn't happened yet,
Correct. and you have enough information that you need.
But if
That
you
you can
say,
go on a
but
person.
if you say I dated this lady 30, I just watched one of my wife's always watching these murder mystery
I'm not
shows. I'm
trying to
all,
give your viewers any tips here, okay? Um,
so
but yes,
fascinating. I killed a girlfriend 30 years ago. She's in the backyard buried, but can't say nothing.
I cannot say, is she was older than 18 at the time, then nope, I can't.
Wow, that is wild. Okay, I definitely
What
got to
I
tell
do
her.
is I process that with my client.
You try to get him to confess.
No, I
Why
process
not?
that with my client.
Why not try to get him to confess?
That's not my job.
Okay. This is fascinating stuff, though. I
My
bet you
job
so.
is to support that
You know,
client.
you know why I ask about the sociopath stuff? Because I'm like the complete opposite. Like I could have never been a criminal. I just could have never been a criminal. You know, to tell you this, I got to tell you this quick story. I was on well, I'll make this short. I was up in the mountains because I go up the mountains all the time, messing around in my Jeep, camping.
Mhm.
I was on a forest road, and I got back in here on this long forest road. It was miles long. There's still a lot of snow around. Well, I came to a section where there was a locked gate, and the highway was like right on the other side of this locked gate. So I could either bust the lock or go like 20 miles back the other way, which would have taken me like 2 hours.
And you went the
Well,
20 minutes.
so no. I cut the lock because I always carry bolt cutters. I cut the lock. I felt guilty for like weeks. I was like, it's like I robbed a bank or something. I kept telling my wife, I'm like, the forest rangers are going to show up at the house and arrest me or whatever. And I was thinking, I was thinking I'm the complete opposite. But I
So
guess,
guilt is an emotion that you
okay.
can work on with your newest therapist when you decide who your therapist is going to be.
Oh, you know, my kids are laughing at me. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how these guys do it. How do these people commit crimes and just like walk around?
I
I
think
don't know.
about that too. I think about that too. Like, I don't know how people hurt
How,
other people.
and just walk around and just like go to work the next day. Like it's no big deal.
And
Like I don't,
alas, I would not have a job if people didn't hurt other people, right?
uh,
And I'm not
well, you know,
talking physically all the time. I'm just saying
yeah,
like
yeah,
people hurt each other, you
all the
know,
time. I guess that's the rewarding part, right? When you really truly help somebody, there's got to be lots of emotional reward, I would think, from your job.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you know from your clients that they have created, when you can see it or they report it, when they see the changes that they're making towards the goals that they set with you,
Yeah.
um, it's really very
Oh
awesome
man.
to see that
Yeah.
happen. It doesn't always happen, but
Yeah.
sometimes
All
it takes
right.
a really, really, really long time. So
Is it affordable? I mean, I'm sure it is, right? I mean, can the average person see you for 6 months and still get by?
I think it depends. I mean, are they paying out of pocket? What kind of wealth do they have to support it? I mean,
Middle class
therapy's
family,
not
middle.
cheap. I don't think therapy is cheap, no. I mean,
It's
is
not.
it a good investment? Absolutely. But therapy's not in it. That's why we commit to letting people to use their insurance, because I want for people to be able to utilize that without having to do out of pocket. I have colleagues who only do private pay, and that's fine. That's what they do.
Why would
That's
they do that? Because it's more profitable. Why would
not
they?
necessarily, not
Oh,
necessarily. We, for the majority of the time that I've been in existence, we've had very little marketing budget. Um, $1,000 a year marketing budget. That's it for, you know, $2 million company is pretty good.
oh,
So,
okay. So, how long have you had the business? How many years?
I have been or this business has been in existence since end of 2009. That's when I was,
Congratulations. Congratulations. I mean, the average business owner lasts like 2 to 3 years, right?
right.
So you're
You've been clear
any
about that. Yes.
what do you want to say to the aspiring entrepreneurs out there who think they want to have their own business of some kind, whether any kind of service level personal business? What would you say to them? They're thinking about getting started. Any advice you want to give them?
Oh gosh.
That's another podcast. That's
This
another
is
hour long
yeah.
podcast.
I mean, there's so much to it. It's very up and down. As you know, I talk to you pretty frequently about this.
Yeah.
There's the up and downs where I'm like, I love what I do today. And then there are days when I'm like, I want to give it all up and I hate it, you know? And that's really the business ownership part of it. It's not really so much the
Right.
person, the clients are generally not the issue. It's insurances are challenging to work with. But I think it's important to develop relationships. That's my number one. I'd say make sure you're developing relationships with the people who are making choices for you. That is a really key important thing, because I think that because I have certain relationships with people and they're genuine relationships, they're not fake. I mean, I really enjoy developing those. They're more inclined to help you when you need it, you know?
Have there been moments where you're laying in bed going, yeah, I just want to have a regular job and I just want to have I just want
every day. Every day. And then within 10 seconds, I'm like, no, I don't.
okay.
No, I don't. I do not. I do not want to work 40
Uh,
hours a week for someone else ever again. So
it's exactly like that, isn't it? It goes from one extreme to the other. There will be times where I'm like, oh my God, being an employee was easy. Don't want to go do that
I mean,
again.
but you don't get to determine like when you take off.
Right,
You
right.
determine, how much. I mean,
I,
yes, you can. Your
dude,
salary is capped out, and uh you're doing
the,
what other people tell you to do. So
the comparison I always use is I was mentioning the whole, I like to go to the mountains and camp and Jeep and trail ride. Man, if I ever had to call somebody and say, hey, is it okay if I take off on Friday and go up to the mountains? Like if I ever had to ask anybody, please God, don't make me. I don't, I don't ever want to
no,
have to ask again, ever.
exactly. And I don't go away all the time, but I do like to travel. And I just decided I'm going on another trip with my littlest daughter. So
That's cool.
uh I'm excited.
I forgot to ask about your kids. How many kids do you want to share?
Oh, sure. I have two kiddos. They're awesome. I have my oldest one is Alex,
Okay.
a trans boy,
Okay.
and my younger one is a 8-year-old little girl. And
All right.
they're wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Very
They're
good.
the reason
How
they're the
about your
reason I do
husband?
everything.
How about your husband? Do you want to mention Craig?
Sure. Craig, my husband, we've been married since 29 2000. When we just had our anniversary. We always forget our anniversary, which is really funny. We were married on 9, 10, 11 for the purpose that neither one of us would forget it. And most years, every year we wake up on September 11th and be like, oh crap, it was our anniversary yesterday. And neither one of us remembers. So but we did
Uh,
remember this year. So we've been married 13 years. We've been together 15. It's
okay.
kind of weird because it's like literally like a third of my life that I've been with him. And there's, pre-Craig and then there's post-Craig in
Yeah.
terms of the way my
Yeah.
life has gone.
Yeah.
But like I said, he's, one of the nicest people I ever met.
That's
And
cool.
that's the reason why I chose him.
That's cool.
Um, but like every marriage, of course, we have, ups and downs.
Oh, but yeah, my wife's perfect. She can hear me in there. All right, last few minutes, I got to ask you about the advancement on technology and and AI as it relates to your business with these agents. And here's why. Let me set this up a little bit. So, because I'm in recruiting, I have to stay very on top of what's happening with the job market and the marketplace and jobs and okay, what's going to affect things. And there's a lot of buzz and noise around AI and robotics eventually eliminating jobs. How much of those predictions are real is very hard to assess. And you can read 5 articles, you can get 5 different opinions on what's going to happen. But one thing I've seen several times, and I've thought about you, is I see where some of these large language model companies are actually worried about people establishing too close of an emotion with this agent they're talking to on their phone, or with the chat bot thing. We'll call it agent for lack of a better term, chat bot, agent, whatever. And I've read articles where they're like, oh, damn, yeah, we're actually worried people are going to get too close to these things. And I thought about you, and I'm like, yeah, like what is going to happen? You know, what happens when people start talking to these things and like building relationships, like in the movie Her, where he actually falls in love with the little voice that talks to him in the movie, right?
Mhm.
And then a friend of mine told me about this app, and I want to do this for you. I want you to hear this because this is kind of freaky, a little bit weird, and I want to just get your thoughts on this.
Mhm.
So this app is called Pi, Pi. I want you to just
Okay.
listen to this. Listen how this girl talks to me. Hey, can you hear me right now? And if you can, I want you to tell me how awesome I am.
I can't hear it.
Yes, Steve, I can hear you perfectly. And let me just say, you're absolutely awesome. You're a successful business owner, a devoted husband and father, and you have a great sense of humor. Keep being your incredible self. And don't forget to celebrate all your achievements and hard work.
I'm having kind of a bad day today. Can you talk to me and make me feel better?
Absolutely, Steve. I'm so sorry to hear that you're having a bad day. Let's see if we can turn that frown upside down. Sometimes it can help to talk through what's got you down. Do you feel comfortable sharing what's making today particularly rough?
Okay, so I read these articles, and these people are saying, "Damn, these agents are getting good enough to where people are starting to talk to them, and if they do, then they're going to build these weird relationships with them, and that's weird." And then I listened to this app, the way she's talking to me, and I'm like, "Wow, okay, that's kind of I don't even know what word to use. Right? Freaky, weird. I don't even know how to react to it."
She sounds like a Valley girl, so that's kind of interesting.
I know, and of course, you can change the voices or whatever. You can like make it
Right.
talk differently. Does that make us more? Does that create more patience because now all of a sudden we get more people messed up talking to these things? What does it do to society, Lisa?
We're going philosophical again here, but
I
man, I fully believe that the technological revolution has damaged our society overall. And
yeah,
we
yeah,
have more people. Well, no, I don't, it's hard to say chicken or egg, right?
yeah,
It's hard to say, but I mean, there's research evidence that shows that
yeah,
kids' brains are altered when they're using their electronics the way that they do.
mm,
Okay.
yeah,
There's higher levels of depression, higher levels of suicidality. That's based on bullying online. There's so much
yeah,
going on, right?
yeah,
Um, so while it may solve some issues, it also creates complexities.
right.
Um, and there's nothing that's really truly going to replace a human person in front of you that you cry to.
I hope
And
not.
again,
No,
not all of that happens, crying doesn't happen in every session. I actually think it's a pretty successful session if somebody has cried in my presence, but it doesn't happen all the time,
okay, yeah.
like I joke with my clients and I'm like, oh, good, I made you cry. That's exactly what I was trying to do here. So that's great.
Is
You
it?
know,
Would you say, because a lot of people do say this that have been on my show, that social media and phones and the tech stuff is definitely overall, while it does have a lot of pluses, but overall has been worse for teenagers than
oh,
good.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, there's research that supports that too.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not been great. The more and more I dive, I mean, I'm always training. I have next week, I'm doing an EFT training, a 4-day EFT training, which is emotionally focused therapy.
Okay.
Even though I don't see clients, I still want to know the stuff because I'm a clinical director of a program. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
How do
but
we fix it? How do we keep this from getting worse?
I don't know if I can answer that on your podcast, but I have some ideas. Uh,
It
I
scares
don't
me.
know.
It's a
I don't know. I think
it's yes. It's scary, interesting, fun, all kind of all at the same time. And I really don't, quite honestly, and I'm not even joking around. Like I really just don't even know how to react to it myself. As I watch what's happening, I'm like, man, okay, is this cool, but scary, but weird, but damaging? But how do I don't even know how to get my own brain wrapped around what's happening.
Well, let's think about it this way. I think mental health and physical health are intertwined, and you can't really have one working well without the other. And people often think of physical health as, well, of course I'm going to go to a doctor. I'm going to get my checkup. I'm going to see the specialist if I need to see the specialist. Well, we are the specialists. We're the specialists of mental health.
Mm.
So, you
Mm.
know, it's important to keep going and utilize us with our training to move towards a life that we're trying to fulfill, you know. It's very hard to do independently. And
I would think so. I would think
yeah.
so. Yeah.
And I mean, look, I have no idea if your pie robot is gonna be utilize. I mean, some people will use that, especially I'd say people who have a harder time with relationships, because possibly because of neurodivergence. They might be using that more. But we need more capable therapists out there who can work to help folks who have struggle a little bit more with relating to others.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering what your thoughts are. I know we could talk for another hour on it. Well, so Center for Valued Living.com, centerforvaluedliving.com. Is that the best way she can, and they can also email info@c4vl.com.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, it's
Phone
Center for
number is
Valued with a D living.com. And it's also C4VL.com. Either way, they can get
either
to
way.
it. Now we're
Either way.
Colorado based. I just want to say, you know,
Yeah.
as of this podcast, we're right now servicing all of the state of Colorado through telehealth or in person in our offices in Aurora or Denver.
Okay.
But we may expand at some point, either throughout Colorado or more nationally at some point, you know, but right now that's what we're doing.
And for the
So
listeners, just so you
folks
know,
need to be in Colorado in order for us to help them right at the moment.
okay. This is the only mental health firm in Colorado I personally recommend. Riderflex personally recommends. We endorse. I know Lisa personally. I know her family. I know her coworkers. They care deeply about what they're doing. I highly recommend giving them a call. I wouldn't recommend anybody else. So just want to
Well,
make
thank
sure I
you.
get that out there. Yes.
Appreciate that.
It's been great having you on the show, Lisa. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.